on this week's reality TV version of That Book Podcast, we have a brand new segment. Are Julianne and Andrew cheating on the old segment with the new segment?
Oh dear.
We'll never know.
I think we will. I think we'll probably tell them.
Oh, that makes sense. So we read some books that were pretty cool. I finished all 3 of mine, which is pretty awesome. And Julianne had some practical assignments that we got to do together, which is awesome. Her tummy just growled, which is pretty fun. We need to go get some food. And we have other books through the new segment that are not as dramatic as I just made them sound. So let's see.
All right. My first book, once again, is Chase the Fun by Annie F. Downs.
Woo!
I think I mentioned this before, but it is a 100-day journey. So this is going to be a minute. It will make an appearance several times. I'm not going to just like blitz through it. I've been reading 1 or 2 a day. Hopefully it won't take 100, but it's definitely going to take a while.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, all that to say right now, she is talking about discovering fun in being an amateur, like in hobbies, but also in things like, forgiveness or forgiveness is the one that I remember. But like friendship, things like that.
Nice.
Things that will bring joy to your life and that people are scared to do.
Aww.
Because they don't feel like they're good at it. And she's like, hey, listen, you're never going to feel like you're good at it. Just be an amateur. So,
Nice.
That's pretty good.
That's really cool.
Yep.
All right. My first book was an audiobook, Dune Messiah. I finished it.
You did?
Yeah, so it's been a few weeks, I know, but I finished it.
Okay.
Which is cool. And it was really good. I don't think I would have enjoyed it very much if I hadn't read the first book. So, if for some reason you find Dune Messiah before you find Dune by Frank Herbert, probably read Dune first and then the sequel, because it's a sequel, so you're building on the characters that already exist, and so it's really interesting, and I really liked it. It was much less climactic and like adventurous-y than the first book was, but I really liked it. There was a lot of intrigue kind of throughout the book, and I said the ending felt a little bit, at the same time, it was like anticlimactic, tragic, but also satisfying.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I don't really know how to explain that because I don't want to give any spoilers, but that's just kind of the general feelings that I was feeling. But I liked it, and I can't wait to read the next book.
Cool.
So I'll be jumping into that one soon. I put the hold on it on Libby, so...
Great.
Yeah.
That's a good note about it, though, as being a sequel, because I feel like, personally, we've been to a couple of, like, thrift stores, and I went to a library book sale last weekend, and I feel like it's easier sometimes to find, like, books later in the series, because everybody sees the first one, and I'm not just talking about Dune, I didn't see any books, but, like, famous series, everyone sees the first one and recognizes it and thinks, oh, yeah, I'll pick that one up, and if I like it, maybe I'll get the others.
Yep.
And so you're at, like, a book sale, and you've got all these, like, 2nd, 4th, 15th books, and you're just like, oh, this looks interesting, but you don't necessarily know where you're picking up. So definitely start with Dune.
Yeah, you got Eldest from the, I don't remember what the series is called, but Aragon is the first book. And you were thinking it was the first book, and I was like, oh, cool, it's the second book in the series I've been wanting to read, and you're like, the second book?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I'm not reading it till I read the first one.
Yeah, so if you happen to see Dune Messiah, but not Dune, definitely get Dune and read it before you read Dune Messiah. So.
Yes.
All right, you're
right
up.
now. All right, second book is A Simplified Life by Emily Ley. I'm also making slow progress through this one, mostly because there's a lot of homework. The first couple chapters are about, like, simplifying your life in terms of getting rid of stuff. The first is just, like, stuff in general. The second is simplifying your wardrobe.
So we had a closet cleaning day.
We did. Yep.
Yes.
I cleaned out my closet, which I'm pretty proud of.
Yeah, and that inspired me to also clean out my side of the closet.
Right, which I would not have said that you needed to clean yours out, but you still found, like, 9 things you wanted to get rid of. So that's pretty good.
Based on her criteria, it was very simple, but very... straightforward and easy.
Yeah, definitely recommend. I've been enjoying it. It's just going to take me... this will probably be a reoccurring book as well, because I don't want to just read it and not do the things. I want to read it, implement it, then move on. And some days I just don't have the time or want to go through my closet or whatever every day. It definitely depends on my mood and what else is happening that day. So, okay.
All right. My second book is another recurring book, One True Sentence. So I finished this one as well. I did some pretty good reading this week.
Yeah.
No nonfiction books, unfortunately. For anybody who's like, oh, tell us the gleanings of profound wisdom held in these books. I don't have any of those. But I did have some good mysteries, so that was fun. So I had one true sentence, and so I finished it, and the more I think about it, the less I like it as a whole. So I've been talking about the last couple weeks how it was a little bit crass, but it was more than a little bit. It was like, I do not recommend this book to people. There's a lot in here that is just not very enjoyable to read, and the storyline was in my mind not compelling enough to keep reading it. Like, I wish I had switched books instead of like. Yeah,
I mean, I feel like you're saying that to somebody who hasn't started the book.
Yes.
When you were reading the book, you were like, I'm gonna see this one through.
Yes.
So
I was committed. I was doing it, and I got to the end, and if the end was for some reason super super satisfying, I might be like, oh, if you really want to get through all of this blood and guts and sexual innuendos and scenes and language, then maybe. But I felt kind of hollow. Quite hollow at the end, so it didn't seem like there was a lot of redeeming factors either. But it was really well written.
Okay.
So I'll give him that. Like, it's not like a horrible book. It's just not one that I would recommend.
And you really enjoyed Ernest Hemingway's character in there, which is So yes, agreed. I don't think I'm gonna read it after hearing you talk about it. Yeah. So thanks for sparing me from that, I guess.
So.
Okay. Cool. And then my last book that I'm gonna talk about for this week. Is Fatal Enquiry. It's a Barker and Llewellyn novel by Will Thomas. This book, it was good. I looked it up while I was preparing for the podcast because I kept thinking about it, and I thought it was just like a one-off novel, and the more I thought about it, I thought, I bet it's part of a series. And so again, we're running into that issue that we talked about before. This is number 6.
Oh.
So
kind of like The Heist was number 14 in that.
Yeah. Okay. So I think my main problem with this book was not that the story wasn't good or that the writing wasn't good. There were a couple times I got a little bit lost because I felt like the scene transitions were weird. But that could just be because I'm not used to half of the things he's talking about. It's set in Victorian England. But one of the things that I think made this book less enjoyable for me is that I didn't really like one of the main characters for like good half or 2/3 of the book. Oh. And then by the end I was like, he's okay, I guess. But he's like supposed to be the good guy. You're supposed to be rooting for him. The premise of this book is, because you asked me about this, because I think you're trying to decide if you want to read it. There's not a lot of like crass things. There's a little blood and guts, but like you expect that in a mystery novel to a certain extent. So it wasn't really that. It was just that like the premise of this book is one of these private inquiry agents. And first of all, they're very stuck up about the fact that they are private inquiry agents.
Private detectives.
And not detectives.
Oh.
So I don't really have a lot of the background for that. I think that was probably explained in some of the earlier books, but they're very like stuck on that point. And then like throughout the book, they continually do things where they're like, well, private inquiry agents wouldn't do this, but desperate times call for desperate measures. So I couldn't really tell the difference. But anyway, then one of these detectives, Barker, has an enemy who comes back in town and then like basically immediately makes them go on the run for their lives.
Wow.
From the cops.
Whoa.
So it's pretty impressive.
Okay.
But then the whole book is them trying to figure out, first of all, how to stay alive. And second of all, how to figure out what in the world this guy is doing that he wants them out of the way so that they can hopefully stop it.
Yeah.
And you would think that like that second one would be like a little bit like secondary to like surviving, but it really doesn't seem to be for the most part.
Oh, I thought the second one was more interesting when you said
it is more interesting, but like if you picture yourself in that situation, maybe I'm a coward. But I feel like I'm just going to keep myself alive and then I'll figure this out. But they're just like, no, we got to figure it out now.
And borderline keep ourselves alive.
Yeah. Yeah, just barely keep ourselves alive. So that was this book. If that sounds interesting to you, you might want to read it.
There we go.
But I think for me, the big thing is, and you might like the character, I didn't find him that interesting or compelling, and I'm just like being told ad nauseum by the narrator, who I did like how admirable he is, how smart he is, how awesome he is, but you don't really see a lot of that because they're just like running from the cops. So, anyway. That was
Okay.
my take on that book. I would say, like, if it was doing stars.
Was the ending satisfying?
Yes.
Okay. That has a lot to do with the overall, like, satisfaction of the story. It's just like,
it was satisfying, and then it made me want to read the next book to see what happened.
What?
But I'm not going to.
Oh, so you enjoyed it. You're like, okay, cool, but not enough to.
Right. I would say, like, if I was rating this on, like, Goodreads or Amazon or something, which I probably won't because I'm not on Goodreads that much anymore, and I didn't buy this book on Amazon. I bought it at a thrift store. Probably 3 stars. Like, it's good, but it's not, like, Agatha Christie level good.
Right. Yeah.
For me, personally.
I don't know how she does it.
And if I had started with the first book, I might feel differently because I would have gotten all that character development instead of just going right in the middle and being like, whatever. Okay. Thank you for hearing me out on that.
Yes. All right. And then this is our last book of this segment, right?
Yes. And this might be part of the reason I like this book less too, is that I just finished the book that you read. And I loved it.
Which is called The Eighth Detective by Alex Pavesi. It was very different than pretty much any other detective novel, mystery novel that I've read. The premise is, and you talked about it a little bit too.
You can talk about it more.
There's 7 short stories called The White Murders, and this person from an editorial agency is looking to publish it, and it was self-published, but they're looking to, like, actually get it in print, and so she's going meeting up with the author to go through these stories just to make sure that everything makes sense. But there's a few inconsistencies throughout the stories that she goes, and so it keeps you on your toes a lot. And the short stories are most of the book. Like about half the book is these short stories that only have each one has a little nugget that's related to the whole story. And then the conversations are where the plot moves along. So it's very interesting from that sense, because I don't know if you felt this way. I felt kind of like the more the short stories went on, the less attached I felt to them. The less invested in the characters I became. So I was like, okay, cool, I'm reading this. It was mildly intriguing. What's the plot? What are they going to say about it?
Oh, interesting.
And then they'd only say, like, this tiny little nugget, and I thought there was going to be, like, huge revelations as it went on, and there was at the very end, and it tied it all together really satisfyingly, and I got one of the major plot points right.
You did.
From, like, pretty early on, so I felt pretty good about that. But I was expecting there to be a lot more revelations between when I had figured out, or thought I had figured out, and ended up being correct about the major plot point and the end. But there was not a lot of movement for, like, the middle third or half of the book, I felt like. So, but the short stories were pretty interesting, and it talks a lot about math, the math of the formula for what makes a detective story. So that kept me interested. So it was good. The ending was really good, and just the mental gymnastics it took to write this book, I think, is really, really impressive. So major props to the author.
Yeah, I think the ending was why I liked that book so much. And then I did like the format. I don't think I found myself less invested in the stories as they went on. I think I was just intrigued with each of the stories to see, like, what format he was going to use. Because they talk about, like, the different ways you can write a mystery novel after. So I was interested with that.
He talks about how each of the 7 stories is kind of a unique case in the formula. It kind of took all these like extremes and made each of them into a story. So
yeah. Okay.
So that is
our first segment.
The end of our first segment. Our second segment is usually a slideshow, but we've been switching it up. Last week, Julianne came up with the cool March Madness thing.
Book bracket.
Ooh, that's even cooler. Book bracket. And we did that, and that was very fun. So she came up with another new segment today that we're trying out.
Yes.
Does this have a name?
Yes, this is called Julianne's TBR.
Is that like to be read?
Yeah.
Okay.
Go.
Nice. Julianne's TBR. And I know nothing about this segment other than that it's called Julianne's TBR.
Yes, because...
And that there's a giant stack of books.
Yes, he knows why we keep coming up with these creative ideas, and it's because I just keep putting off a slideshow because I'm waiting for, like, a book that seems slideshow worthy. and that I'm actually finished with. So anyway, this has taken some time.
Yes.
So anyway.
So in the meantime,
we're doing these other fun segments, and so if you like one of the segments and you happen to be listening to this, you should let us know, because we'll probably just keep doing things willy-nilly without any input. So anyway, this stack here represents it represents 10 books I would like to read soon.
10 books you would like to read.
And I was thinking that because I have Chase the Fun, I have that Emily Ley book that I'm reading, A Simplified Life.
And there's another Emily Ley book in here.
Yes, and then I have another book that I'm reading that I didn't talk about this week because I read it, but I talked about it last week and I just... Anyway.
Same.
Yeah, so kind of the same vein where I'm just working through it kind of slowly. I thought, okay, we should talk about my nominations for the book I'm going to work through more quickly. So I'm going to go through the stack.
Okay.
I'm going to talk about pros and cons of each, and you can chime in whenever you have thoughts. Okay?
Oh, okay. Now that I know more about this, I'm beginning to have some thoughts.
Yeah, and I'm thinking also that, there's a delay between when we make these episodes and when we post them, but if anyone is listening, I don't know if anyone's listening, but if anyone is listening, they could also comment, let us know which ones they would be interested in hearing about, and that would probably move it up to the top of the list. Probably for the next one I read, I'll just do what I want because we're not going to get this episode out in time, but it might move the other ones up.
Just a few weeks, I think, at this point.
Yeah, and I don't necessarily have a ranking here. I just kind of pulled these off the shelves, and I'm just kind of thinking about what's my next book going to read. So I figured I would take you and whoever else wants to be here along for the journey.
Let's do it.
Okay, so the first book here is called The No. 1 Ladies Detective Agency by Alexander McCall Smith. I don't know a lot about this book. His name is kind of familiar. I just got this book last weekend at a library book sale. And the front cover says that it is one of the best, most charming, honest, hilarious, and life-affirming books to appear in years.
Wow.
So that's pretty high praise. I feel like I would like it, and it does seem like it's detective stories. So this one seems like a strong contender to me.
That is a strong contender. It seems like a very cozy read.
Yes, that's what I was thinking, and I like that.
And it's not terribly long. It's a smaller...
paperback.
So the book, the dimensions of the book are rather small, and it's 235 pages. So
that doesn't seem bad.
Yeah, you would read that quite quickly. So
yep.
that's a good one.
Yep. Okay, the next up is that's definitely a strong contender. I'm gonna put them in different piles based on how strong I feel.
Green, yellow, red.
There are no red ones in this pile.
No red ones in this pile.
If it's a red one, it did not make it to this pile. It's just gonna stay on the shelf.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Okay. So then we have Revelations of Divine Love by Julianne of Norwich. I've been wanting to read this book for a long time because C.S. Lewis really liked it. And so I feel like there's a lot of things C.S. Lewis read and that influenced him that would have made his writing so awesome, and I kind of want to discover some of those things. I want to read George McDonald eventually, but I found this one a few years ago at a thrift store, and I was like, I'm going to read this one. I remember somebody saying that this was one of his favorite devotional authors.
Nice.
So I wanted to read it. I actually started this one at some point, and I got through a little bit of the translator's note, because this was written, I think, in Old English, which you can't actually read if you're a modern day English speaker.
Yep.
And read a lot about the history and the significance and how she's the oldest English female author to survive, and who she might have been, and all this stuff. And I just found myself not super compelled, even though I was very interested. Starting, I think the introduction kind of took some wind out of my sails on it. So I'm thinking about taking it back up. I'm just not sure about it.
Okay. This seems like a yellow light to me.
Yes, it does. To me as well. Yeah. But I just didn't know if you had any thoughts about it. If you're yes, that sounds like an amazing book.
That was my thought on it, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. It seems pretty cool.
Yeah.
But yellow light is my thought on it right now.
Okay. Yeah. Sounds good. Rebecca Lyons' Rhythms of Renewal, Trading Stress and Anxiety for a Life of Peace and Purpose. That's the next one on the pile.
Oh, so this feels like, again, just the covers. I haven't dived deep into these, thought about these books very much, most of them.
Right.
Julianne of Norwich sounds a little bit heady, a little bit academic. And I'm getting the vibe right now from you that you're trying to stay more like devotionally and like engaging, practical. This is probably going to be more like cerebral rather than practical. And this book right here is sounding more practical.
That's
so
true.
This is a green light for me so far.
Okay, cool. I also am really excited to read this.
Mm-hmm.
It's been on my to-read list for a while, and I just haven't gotten my hands on it till recently, when Molly gave it to me, so cool. The one thing that I'm a little hesitant about is that, like, Chase the Fun is supposedly a devotional. It doesn't feel very devotionally, but it's a little bit that way. What's the other book that I'm reading? Meeting God in Scripture by Jans Johnson is, devotionally. It's, you're literally, like, reading through Scripture. I don't think the Simplified Life one is very devotionally. But I guess I was just a little bit worried about getting too many practical things. But I do think this is still probably a green light.
Okay.
Even after thinking about all of that.
Really? Because now I'm moving it to yellow light.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, because I think I would work through this one faster than the other ones.
Okay, great.
So I think it would be more...
All right, we got to roll. We're not even halfway through this track.
Okay, the next one is Digital Minimalism by Cal Newport.
Yeah.
I've been wanting to read this one for a while as well.
Yeah, same. I actually got through the first chapter on vacation a little while ago or something, and it was really good. I haven't gotten back around to it for some reason, but I would definitely greenlight it. It is very good.
Okay.
Yes.
Let's put it on the green light. We'll see.
Yeah.
Grace, Not Perfection by Emily Ley.
Ooh.
This book has been on my shelf for a few years. Actually, I think it's been on my shelf for 4 years, if I'm being honest. And this is Molly's book, and I borrowed it, and then when I saw her recently, I said, I'm so sorry, I still have a book from you. I actually have several books that you lent to me, and I haven't returned. I know which ones they all are. I will return them. I just haven't read them yet. So I'm still holding on to them, and I'm sorry. And she was like, oh, no worries. Do you remember which ones they were? And I mentioned this one, and she said, oh, that's funny, because I brought that book for you today, because I thought you would like it. So, I mean...
So it's your book now.
This is my book now.
Yeah, I don't know exactly how that happened, but...
Yeah, and somebody else also has a copy of the book, because Molly twice thought that I would like it. And I agree that I think I would like it. I started reading it at one point. You can see where the bookmark is, but I left it off for some reason. So part of me is thinking that's very funny, and it would be kind of a good prompt to read it again.
Yeah.
Other part of me is thinking it would probably be a good go along with the other book that I'm reading by her. But... I'm
going to say yellow light this book.
Okay.
Because it feels like it overlaps too much with the other books that you're reading.
Okay.
And because I see finish in this stack, and I think... You will love,
You're not supposed to be peeking ahead.
Well, I'm peeking ahead, and I think that will be a great balance of what this book would accomplish right now, except without too much because it's even got this little built-in bookmark like Chase the Fun has. Plus, it's Emily. So I think that'd be too much of the same thing for you right now, and so.
Okay.
I'm gonna yellow light.
That's fair. I can't read all 10 of these books, so we got to put some in the yellow light.
At least this week.
Right, I can read it later. Codename Verity.
Ooh.
I bought this book at a bookstore because I was very excited to read it.
That was Horizon Books?
Horizon Books.
That was a great bookstore in Traverse City. It's one of my favorite bookstores I've ever been in.
We should go back.
Yeah.
Anyway, it sounds very intriguing. It's a historical fiction novel set in World War II, 2 besties. I want to read it. But I don't... I for some reason I haven't picked it up in the books.
We already have the #1 Ladies Detective Agency.
This one's different. It's not a mystery. It's historical fiction.
Yellow light it.
I'm gonna green light it.
Whoa, okay. But what about this book? So I was peeking again a little bit because I also saw this one.
Lincoln in the Bardo by George Saunders. This is... I don't think this is historical fiction.
Okay.
It's loosely historical fiction, but there's supernatural elements. So it's a little bit more like literary fiction.
Yeah.
And a few weeks ago, I was going to get started reading it. I brought it with me in the car. You had a meeting after church, and I normally end up spending some time in the car. And I was like, I'm just gonna read this while I wait. And then I just ended up talking to people and playing ping pong. So I didn't start it.
That's a good use of time.
And I'm honestly, I still want to read this book. I'm not going to get rid of it, but I'm honestly feeling a little less urgency around reading it right now, and I don't know why that is.
Okay. Yellow lighted then. I was thinking Codename Verity was going to get yellow lighted and Lincoln the Bardo was going to get green lighted. But, because it's about Abraham Lincoln, right? Or is it a different
It's about his son.
Oh, his son.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's about all I know, because I've only read the, like, inside cover.
It makes sense. Okay, cool. Okay. We're cruising now. What's next?
Finished by John Acuff.
Yes. Green light it.
Andrew's like automatically green light.
Yes.
Yeah, I feel like this would be an enjoyable read. It would be different than the books I'm reading.
I think my first slideshow on our podcast, I think it was episode 2, was about Finish.
Yeah.
And it was really good. So, yeah,
And that's the one thing that's holding me back, actually, is that if I read this one, then, like, selfishly, I do have to do a slideshow again at some point, probably.
We can both do a finished slideshow 2 months apart. I think that's fine.
I don't know. I think that sounds boring for people. For us, personally.
Okay. Well.
Or I could, like, I guess I could do a breakdown of, like, the differences in our experience or something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That might be interesting. I just was like...
We could call it book breakdown. We have book bracket. We could also have book breakdown where we read the same book and we talk about our different opinions about it.
Yeah, I just was like, I need to get a slideshow book at some point. And this one has already had a slideshow. So, okay, if you
I just helped invent another new segment to get you out of another slideshow.
Thank you. So. I appreciate it. I will put Finish on the green pile for that one. The green pile is much longer.
Yes. This one should go... I know you said there's no red light pile, but there's a red light on this book.
Yes, there is.
Yes. What book is it?
It's Not Your Turn by Heather Thompson Day. What to do while you're waiting for your breakthrough.
I just love how sassy sassy and intriguing that title.
Oh, she's awesome.
Yeah.
So I want to read this book because she's awesome. But I'm looking at that green light pile, and I think this probably needs to go on the yellow for now.
You want to... I might put it above Digital Minimalism, honestly, for you.
Oh, really? You think it's probably going to be better?
I think you could swap that out, maybe. Huh. If you wanted to. Depending on how you're feeling about It's Not Your Turn. I wasn't getting strong vibes from Digital Minimalism from you, so...
Maybe I will.
Oh, okay. We're doing
All right,
it.
swapping it.
Swapping it out.
Okay. All right, and then the final one. This one is called Great Detectives, A Century of the Best Mysteries from England and America, edited by David Willis McCullough.
This is a big book. There's a bunch of people's names on the front. It's 700 pages.
It's chunky.
So it's a lot of short stories, right?
Yeah, there's 2 novels, a novella, and short stories by a bunch of different authors. And here's what I was thinking when I picked this up, is actually Israel Zangwill's The Big Bow Mystery, or The Big Bow Mystery, I'm not sure how it's pronounced because I haven't read the book. That was mentioned in the book I just finished, Fatal Enquiry.
Oh.
Because he's like, it was written like during the time that guy was alive. Well, it's placed during the time that guy was alive.
So he's like, this new book, The Big Bow Mystery, you read it?
Well, no, they know the guy who wrote it or something.
Oh, okay.
Or he's mentioned. I don't remember exactly how he
similar to Hemingway being in the book that I read.
Yeah. So,
there's also, like, Agatha Christie, G.K. Chesterton.
Yeah, and there's some people here who I've heard of, but I've never read any of their works.
Yeah.
But they're, like, classic mystery authors, so I was thinking it could be interesting to kind of get my feet wet and then know who I like and don't like, so I can be on the lookout for other books.
Well, okay, so this seems like a pick it up sometimes. You know, maybe it'll take a little bit to go through the novels, but you can go through these short stories in a day. You know, in a half hour. So I would say yellow light it, and when you're feeling like it, you just pick it up and read a little bit of it.
Okay, that seems fair because I do think that I have enough books that I'm just going to pick up sometimes. I need one that I'm going to pick up every day. Yeah.
So I think you did a good job because we have half and half. I don't know if that was like the rule that you had coming into this segment, but 5 in each pile. So I think you did a good job.
Okay, awesome. I did not have any goals. I was just going to talk about it because I needed something to talk about.
Well, I think we did, and I think you did a great job. And now we're brainstorming other segments while we're in the new segment. So
that's awesome.
Hopefully it was successful. Hopefully you guys liked it. Let us know. And that's it, right?
Yep.
Segment 2, done?
Done.
End of the podcast?
Yep.
All right. We will see you guys next week. Bye.
Bye.